Hi, welcome to my channel, Reader Woman. My name's Judy, and let's talk The Tragedy of Macbeth. I just saw the Joel Cohen movie version of Shakespeare's play and was blown out of the water. Cannot recommend it more highly. I thought I'd give you a little bit of history with me and Macbeth. I was lucky enough when I was in high school to have independent studies. And so I took great advantage of that for at least 3 years, if not 3.5 years of my high school. And I had a wonderful English teacher, Miss Jones Smith, who allowed me to just read whatever I wanted. So for one class a day, I got to just do whatever. And I decided to read Shakespeare. She decided that I should start with Macbeth. So Macbeth was the first piece of Shakespeare I ever read. I don't know why. I think traditionally they go that way because it's violent. Has a lot of great themes, and they're hoping to suck kids in. For me, I didn't really need the violence, but yeah, it was an interesting start. And then, I don't know how long after I read the play, Miss Smith ended up with 2 tickets to see a live performance. I grew up in Southern California, and so in the Amundsen Theater, I got to see Charlton Heston as Macbeth. So that was pretty cool. I don't recall being blown away, but it was a great experience. It was the first time I'd ever seen Shakespeare performed live. My mom, who had no interest in it whatsoever, had to drive me, and so she had to sit there too. But yeah, it was very, very interesting. And then, of course, in college, I read it at least one more time. It's not my favorite play, but I think it is a very interesting play. And after seeing the movie, I have some new thoughts about the play. This video is going to be full of spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie and you want to see the movie first, then bye-bye. Go away. Go see, run. Don't walk to go see it. Highly recommend it. For those of you who are willing to put up with spoilers, I was really impressed almost from the very beginning. The very beginning starts with a black screen, and you hear the witch's voice, the witches' voices. And you're like, what's going on? But you're hearing all this Shakespearean, whatever you want to call it, vocabulary coming at you, this speech, and you're like, wow, where are we? And then all of a sudden, boom, it's a white screen. And it's just like you've been blown back in your seat with this white, because the dark had been dark for long enough. All of a sudden, this white appears, and then you realize it's being shot up into the sky, and you see 1, 2, and then 3 crows flying around, and it starts. Denzel Washington played Macbeth. I thought he did a great job. I really did. Of course, I always like Frances McDormand. She also co-produced it. And yeah, I thought she did a great job. But the one who really blew me away, let me get her name correct, was Catherine Hunter, who played the witches. I remember the live theater, and it was like, I won't say kitschy, but the witches were just kind of like, yeah, witches around a cauldron, you have smoke coming out, and they're just chatting away to each other. This particular set of witches were like a golem. And she raises her body from, she's face down on this sandy area, and she raises up and she has sand on her bottom lip, and she's talking in this raspy voice, and there's different voices, but then also she was contorting herself. And I have to say, as a viewer, it kind of freaked me out. And I never expected that to happen at all, at all. You know, the play has always seemed to me to be about power and wanting power. After seeing it in that movie, I have a very different idea. I mean, it is about power, but it's also the longevity of power. And the one thing that you don't really, that came to me in the movie is this was about age versus youth. And because the characters from, oh gosh, let's see here, you know, from Denzel to Francis to Brendan Gleeson played King Duncan, to the gentleman, let's see here, that was Bertie Carvel playing Banquo. These are men and women with lines on their face, with battle scars on their souls, that they have life, they've lived life. And then you have Malcolm, who is Duncan's oldest son, who he is going to pass the baton to once he dies as king. That will be his future king. You have Banquo's son, Fleance, and then you have Macduff's children. And what really struck me was Lady and, you know, Lord MacBeth, the Thane, they had no children. And it almost felt like they had a war going against the people in power who had children to pass the baton on to. They wanted power for themselves, but they also realized too, it was going to die with them because they didn't have a child. You know, it was a little unsettling because you have that whole scene where Lady Macbeth talks about, you know, how the babe at her breast, you know, her ambition would, you know, cause her to dash its brains out. And you're like, in hindsight, it's easy enough to say that if you haven't had a child. And perhaps it might be easy enough if your child died, which they may have had children who passed and never made it to adulthood. The play is rather ambiguous about that. But the one theme that really caught my eye was that dichotomy and that war, you know, the war for power, but the fact that power that you're not able to pass on, they felt the need to kill all the other people in their echelons, children and families, to make sure that their heirs didn't take over. Is it valid or not? I don't know, but that's what really struck me the most. The photography, the cinematography was amazing. All shot black and white. I was surprised by the sets. I thought they were a little minimal, but used to great advantage. But yeah, I was surprised we didn't have, you know, Scottish Highland scenes and things like that, but that wasn't the case at all. It could be a case that it was being made during COVID and, you know, traveling and all the rest of it in 2020 was very difficult. I mean, I don't know the actual story of how it got made. But, you know, the costumes I also really, really liked. I noticed the costumes. And Lady Macbeth in particular, her first scene, she has this rather medieval looking dress on that's very plain, but then the bottom of it is, she has like a train. And it's almost like that train, she's moving that train around like it's almost a tail that's twitching. And then she went to bed and she woke up and it looked like she was in more of a nightgown, but it had this beautiful collar decoration, just simple little stitching, but it was beautiful. You just notice the stitching, you notice the fabrics and the textures, the weaving in the men's you know, armor. I mean, they didn't go metal, they went more leather, which I thought was very effective. With it looked like a woolen sweater underneath, with these little pieces of stitching, everything being held together by a thread. I really had to admire Catherine Hunter, and she scared me. She scared me at the end as the witch. It just, I don't know what the power was, but it was there. More so than I've ever, just reading the play, ever felt. I also loved the final scenes where the forest came to Macbeth. They had this tremendous, but you know, they had pacing, they had not so much music as it was more like pounding, 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 and then drips that would make huge sounds. And the whole ambiance, of course, was just chilling. Chilling. I don't understand Lady Macbeth's death. I thought that Cohen, as the director and adapter, put a question mark in your mind, you know. The gentleman, and let's see if I can find his name. Wait a minute here. This might be Ross. She was like at the very top of a set of stairs. Her toes curl. I mean, every single thing. It was like a dance, and every movement was captured. You felt like, in some ways, like it was an Orson Welles production. You know, his Rosebud. It felt like that. I thought it was a little gimmicky, the fact that the screen was not normal film size. It was smaller to more fit the old TVs that we used to have. But it gave a different aperture look to the movie. You were aware that you were just seeing a view of what was going on, you know, like through a window the whole time. Where was I going with this? So, Lady Macbeth at the top, you saw her toes curling around the top stair. She's already in her insane mode. Depression, guilt. Considering that she was willing to unsex herself to get her husband to be king. You know, he was willing to kill his liege lord. Neither one of them really seemed to be enjoying the experience of being king and queen of Scotland. But then as she was teetering there at the top, the character of Ross, who was kind of a creepy guy, he had this long overdress, actually, with a belt that made his waist seem incredibly small. And then he had this shawl that instead of, it fell over his arms lengthwise. It was a very distinctive look. And he was coming up the stairs, and you just weren't sure if he had given her a little push or if she chose to fall at that time, he could have caught her. It was just a little interesting, and I've never understood why she ended up killing herself. I loved listening to the language. They did a great job of enunciation, bringing it to life. You know, I cannot mention Macbeth without mentioning and reading, which I'm going to read, not quote, because I want to make sure the words are correct. But this is my only little piece of poetry that I have memorized, which is, anyways. Out, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. I mean, it is my favorite quote out of there. I thought Denzel could have gotten just a hair more out of it, but it was a very significant moment for me. I did lift my finger in the theater because, of course, yay! I got to hear that. And I thought the ending was brilliantly done. The choreography, you know, because you had Macbeth in this total slump and depression and crazy zone, and all of a sudden, here he is, his powers being threatened, and he comes to life, and he is that soldier. He survives. He kills. And they did a beautiful job of choreographing the first fight in kind of the throne room, which had these large pillars, and they were using those pillars to hide against and hit their swords against. It was magnificent. The ending where he fights Macduff, just chilling. I cannot recommend this movie more. It's just brilliant, and anyone who loves Shakespeare is going to love this. So I hope you go out and see it. If you do, let me know what you think, and I will be back again soon. Take care. Keep reading. Bye.